Hello everybody! Welcome back, Raspberry fans, as we're back again as we further expand into the fandom of the Dream SMP. And today we'll be reading a wonderful fic, one of my favorites, by the author Drhair76 on Archive of Your Own and Twitter. And the fic we'll be reading today by this wonderful author is And I Won't Run Away, part 1 of the To Love Is Not to Leave series. So once again, thank you so much to our wonderful author for allowing me to read these fics, and let's get right into it. Please forgive me if I stutter, hesitate, or mispronounce anything, and for any noises in the background. Let's go. Tommy was there for Fundy's manifestation. The day was warm and summery, with the wind blowing a gentle breeze that scattered loose leaves all around the SMP, and the sky and sun working together to create a cloudless blue bliss that made everyone want to be outside. The lot of them were tucked in the garden area outside of Wilbur's van in Lemanberg, sitting around in the grass, waiting. Tubbo was picking at the blades absently while talking with Techno, who was a sight sitting there on the ground cross-legged next to the daisies in all his big man glory. Jack was on Tech's other side, snuffing with his dog nose into the red cape, marveling at his softness, while Niki giggled at him and periodically reached out to pet Jack's head. Phil was working overtime to calm Wilbur, who was pacing back and forth and up and down like he was training for a marathon. "What if it goes wrong?" he's saying, wringing his hands together. What if he gets hurt?" "He won't, mate," Phil reassures. "He won't." "But how do you know?" Phil makes an amused sound. "I've lived through 2 manifestations, yours and Techno's. I've also overseen Tubbo's. You've overseen Tubbo's. Yes, they were frantic and stressful, but none of you had gotten hurt. You're more ready than you know to help Fundy with his. And if you feel you aren't, I'm right here with you, mate. We all are." Tommy waits until Wilbur looks up and nods slowly, before going, "Yeah, Will, and you know I'll always take your place as Fundy's father figure if you start to break down from all the stress. Anytime." Wilbur's pensive look melts into a fond annoyance as he reaches over and ruffles Tommy's hair. Little pest. The door to the van opens and Ponk comes out, smiling. "It's time." Wilbur pulls his hand from Tommy's hair, but doesn't move. Everyone stares at him, waiting, but he still doesn't move, just watching Ponk and the wide open door with scared eyes. Tommy grumbles a little, impatient, and stands, shoving Wilbur in the back to the stairs. He stumbles, then rights himself and marches on, up the steps and inside. Phil casts Tommy a grateful look and then follows. They don't want to all try fitting inside, so Techno volunteered to stay out with Jack and Niki and Tubbo. Wilbur had asked for Tommy to join him, all soft and sweet big brother voice on, so Tommy pretended to grumble, but agreed. But Tommy was nervous. Manifestations, in his experience, were rough and long, despite everything he's ever heard from others. He teases Fundy, but he doesn't want to see him have to go through that, doesn't want to have to sit through that. "All right, Theseus?" Technoblade asks, when Tommy doesn't move. Tommy turns, meets his brother's eyes. Yeah, I should be. I'm going in." "It'll be all right," Tubbo says cheerily. "Wilbur's in there." "That's true." Tommy nods jerkily, and then turns and heads up the stairs. Inside, Fundy is laying on the bed, sick and shivery, holding Wilbur's hand. Phil stands a bit behind them, looking over Wilbur's shoulder as he kneels. Wilbur's free hand is carefully brushing the bangs off Fundy's forehead, then carting through the locks all gentle and slow. Ponk in the corner just keeps watching for any abnormalities, smiles knowingly, and just as Tommy catches sight of it, Fundy starts twitching. Not full-body spasms like Tommy thought, just continuous small flinches, and with it, Fundy makes a muted inhuman noise, like a yip. "You're all right, Fundy," Wilbur says, still brushing his hand through his hair. "You're all right. We're all here. I'm here." Tommy watches with wide eyes, waiting for it all to get steadily worse, but all that happens is Wilbur moves his hand again and then pauses, pulling back slowly. When he does, 2 orange furry ears rise on Fundy's head, flickering and swiveling around. It's starting, Phil says. He sounds odd. The magic was always his favorite part. Move back a bit, Will, if you can. Wilbur shuffles backward, looking very much like he doesn't want to. When he does, Fundy turns to seek him out, eyes still squeezing shut. He's still making those tiny little yipping noises, as if he's calling out. We're all right. We're all right here, Fundy, Wilbur is saying, voice dipping into his unconscious melody. Me, Phil, Tommy, Techno is outside with everyone else as well. Jack and Tubbo and Niki, they all came for this. Fundy curls in on himself with a whine, and Wilbur jolts forward. Tommy looks away, not wanting to see him crawl at himself in pain or sob hard enough that it tears up his throat. He waits, eyes squeezed shut, face turned away, expecting to hear gasping and crying, but he doesn't. Tommy looks over when Fundy doesn't make anything more than a distressed mewing. From the time that Tommy turned away to the time he looked back, Fundy's hands have shrunk into paws, his hair dissolved into fur, his teeth sharpened and whiskers grown. Wilbur is still hovering, brushing a calming hand over Fundy's new fur, and when Fundy turns into the palm, there's a thick orange tail protruding from behind him, flicking and wiggling. He's a fox, Tommy says softly, awed. Wilbur looks at him, and his expression almost cuts Tommy open. It's so warm and fun and proud. He is. We're almost finished now, Ponk reminds them. First full shift in a moment. Fundy continues squirming and shaking and squinting, fur covering skin and feet elongating into back paws and nose darkening until he's completely shifted, until he's a little fox in a nest of blankets, blinking up at them with big brown eyes. Oh, Fundy, Wilbur says. He reaches a hand down, all slow movements and carefully hesitancy. He coos when Fundy's ears flick, and he brushes a whiskered cheek against Wilbur's outstretched fingers. Oh, my boy. Tommy watches, stomach swirling as Wilbur picks Fundy up, pulls him close, tucks a small fox head into his chest like he's the most precious thing in the world to him. He watches as Phil comes around to Fundy's back and strokes a slow finger down his soft fur, laughing softly when Fundy tries to wiggle around and nose at his palm. It didn't hurt, Tommy thinks. He's grateful. Fundy is surrounded by love, and that's good. Great, even. He deserves it. Tommy watches Fundy bump his forehead against Wilbur's jaw and tickle Phil's nose with his tail. Fundy watches him be fawned over and showered in love in his form. Tommy watches and yearns. Frick off, Jack, Tommy says for the 5th time that day. I've got farming to do. His head is still in his own chest, searching for his hoe, so he only hears it when Jack's paws click against Tommy's wooden floor and he braces up at the chest edge with him. Jack, shifted into his form, nudges his brown furry head into Tommy's view and sniffs at his cheek. Jack, Tommy says warningly, squinting at the chocolate lab. Jack's nose twitches once, and then Tommy's cheek is being licked. Tommy groans and pushes Jack's head away, swiping at his own cheek. Frickin' gross, dude. What in the world? He pulls out of the chest, standing, and Jax begins to run around at Tommy's feet, back and forth, barking excitedly, like Tommy's agreed to play with him or something. He starts moving back and forth, herding Tommy towards his front door like Tommy's one of those brainless sheep or some little pup. Jack, dude, I can't play with you right now, Tommy sighs, stumbling backward a few steps. Jack pauses, tongue lolling, and Tommy thinks that he's finally listened, but then something hits the back of Tommy's legs. He turns and, frick. Tubbo is there, butting at Tommy's leg, braying like he's asking, Tommy, please? When Tommy looks back at Jack, he's got those eyes on Tommy, head cocked to the side, ears open, waiting. The mother frickers, Tommy thinks. They planned this. Guys, I've not even manifested yet, he lies, reaching down a hand to scratch at Jack's little floppy ears. Why don't you go find Ponk or Fundy? They'll be able to play with you. He brushes by Jack, who started whining and pawing at the floor, and reaching up, finding his hoe at the top shelf. Something grabs at his pant leg, and Tommy looks down to see Tubbo, biting the cuff, trying to pull Tommy away from his tools and out the door. So frickin' annoying. He's terribly fond. Tubbo, Tommy says sternly, shaking him off and then kneeling down to his level, looking in his wide goat eyes. My carrots need me. You guys have each other. You'll be all right. Tubbo snorts like he doesn't like that and then butts his little horns into Tommy's shoulder, but gently, in the way that Tommy knows is loving. Jack makes a disappointed yapping sound, but it stops when Tubbo turns and trots at him, urging him out. He seems to get the gist quickly, running out with Tubbo on his tail, and the two of them chasing one another and falling all over each other on his lawn. Tommy steps out and watches, leaning on his hoe. Jack rolls over, paws up, and lets Tubbo bite at his hind legs before turning and nipping at his scruff playfully. They look like they're having the time of their lives. They look so blissful and happy, playing together on Tommy's lawn, not a care in the world except for each other. Tommy turns away, towards his carrot plot. He can't have that. He couldn't. They wouldn't want. No. Besides, he's got carrots to pick. Techno doesn't shift often. He says that there isn't much need to. Ever since coming to this server, all the wars are over, all the battles fought. He finds no reason to bare his tusks and charge, or size up threats and hold his ground. He walks around during the day, shoulders loose and hair tied up, buying fruits for Tubbo and shiny metals for Wilbur. Sometimes he'll come by Tommy's and help him build another tower, or lightly scold him for stealing from Dream before giving him a gift because he stole it without him noticing. He'll shuff proudly, place a heavy hand on Tommy's hair, and then go, "Little menace, what in the world are we going to do with you?" It's good. But Tommy likes it best when Technoblade shifts, because all big and brown and furry. Likes it when his steps thud and his eyes sharpen. He does it when he sleeps at night in the home that all four of them used to share, the one all the way out in the cold, the one that Tommy will drop by every once in a while, the one that Wilbur flies over when he's bored. Snow Home, Tommy affectionately dubs it, avoiding the word den with everything in him. Techno says he shifts there because that's his territory, and he wouldn't let anyone ever come into his territory uninvited, wars or not. He says that they, Phil and Tommy and Wilbur, are his people, his Sonder, and that night is the most vulnerable time for them. He says that nothing will happen to them when he is around and watching, he promises. At night, when he settles down to sleep, Tommy wants to curl up at his back, safe and warm and protected. He wants to be tucked close, hear a heartbeat thud through him, something solid and unshakable, something that feels like a pledge to always stay. Tommy wants to press against Techno's back, fur to fur, and tuck himself in. He wants to nest. He wants to be part of Technoblade's Sonder in every form, wants the undying protection and love that it promises. Instead, he stays human and takes what he can get. Because the server has to be accessible for everyone, there are these thin interconnected water pathways that run alongside and under Tommy's prime path. Objectively, they are beautiful, full of clear spring water and dotted with lily pads for George to hop onto and for Quackity to paddle around when they shift. If they were just used for that, Tommy would be fine with it. Unfortunately, though, Dream is the one most often in them. "Why are you following me, Dream?" Tommy asks, deadpan, squinting at the lanky green and blue water dragon that keeps peeking his head up every couple of feet, as if he's sneaking up or something. "Don't you have a frog to bother?" Dream pokes his little scaly head up again, frills flexing, and that's all the warning Tommy gets before he's spitting a stream of water, dousing Tommy, then making a loud hacking sound and diving back under with a flick of his tail. "You mother fricker!" Tommy squeaks, dripping wet all over the path. He shakes his arms and Dream resurfaces on his back this time, lazily paddling with his back-webbed feet, watching Tommy with mirthful eyes. "I'm trying to build these lanterns for the prime path on your server, you overgrown lizard." Dream snorts, then warbles casually, like he's dismissing Tommy. He flicks more water at him, using his long tail, and then flips under, resurfacing to paw at the back and gently snap his teeth at Tommy's direction. Tommy wants to play. It's an ache in him, an urge. He wants to shift and dive in, bite this shirt out of Dream's ridiculous little scales. Wants to climb all over his spine and burrow in his head, claws curling. He wants to wrestle in the water, knowing that Dream would never hurt him, knowing that by the end, Tommy would rest on his upturned stomach as they paddled down the river. Tommy doesn't, though. He just rolls his eyes, and when Dream climbs up on the grass and shifts to human form, all grinning and bright-eyed, Tommy just pushes him back into the stream with a splash. "Why don't you shift?" Niki asked him one night. They're sitting under the lemon tree, watching Wilbur flutter around a pouncing Fundy. Tommy gives it 1 minute before Fundy catches him, and Wilbur has to tap out because his old and brittle bird bones can't take it. Then someone else will have to step in his place to give chase. Tommy has no clue who that would be. Ideally, it'd be him, but, well, I haven't manifested yet, Tommy says, shrugging, so I can't. You haven't? Really? Tommy nods, doesn't look at her. He's lying, and it's hard because he's never been the best at it, but he doesn't have much of a choice here. He's Tommy, and Niki is Niki. Her shifted form is a frickin' dove for Prime's sake. She's the symbol of love and peace, universally liked. She's written into the Bible by Jesus H. Christ. That's how loved she is. Tommy isn't written in anything, isn't anywhere. He couldn't possibly compare. Well, I can't wait for it, she says, all nice and sweet. I feel like your form will shake up a lot of things around here. Yeah, that's one way to put it. He's creeping around Snowhome, about to try stealing that one soft, warm, fuzzy blanket that Techno's got on top of his closet, when he overhears Phil and Wilbur's low tones coming from the kitchen. He pauses outside, hardly hesitating before he's pressing closer, trying to hear. Just worried, Wilbur is saying, and he sounds it too, voice lined with frustration and concern. Tommy can almost picture his furrowing brow and the way he bites at his bottom lip, all thoughtfully. It should have happened by now, right? Yes, Phil responds, and there's some shifting, the sound of their cupboards opening, then closing. Manifestations usually happen before a certain age, and Tommy's past it. Well past it, I'd say. He seems all right, but we ought to really be looking out for any. Tommy pulls away, and has just enough sense to walk slowly out the living room, avoiding the creaking wooden floorboards before rushing up the stairs into his room. He shuts the door, locks it, shifts, and climbs up the exposed rafters, wide wooden beams running across his ceiling. They're there in case Wilbur or Phil wants to nest, so they could in any room they wanted. But sometimes when no one is around, Tommy will shift and pretend it's for him. Tall enough and hidden enough that he can feel safe, connected enough so he can climb, made with him in mind. He hides up there, pressed into a corner, and doesn't relax until he hears two familiar wing beats on the open air. Phil and Wilbur, leaving for their flight. The house is empty except for him. It was empty like this the day that he manifested. He'd been all alone. Wilbur and Phil left for a 3-day trip, with Techno taking a visit to the Nether at Tommy's reassurances that he'd be fine on his own, and in his defense, he was, for the first day. The second day, around mid-morning, he started feeling feverish, cold and clammy, and his hands wouldn't hold still enough for him to drink a glass of milk. He dragged himself over to the couch and pulled up one of Phil's blankets over him, buried his nose in a pillow that Wilbur made. He must have drifted off, because hours later he woke up crying, terrible pain pounding at him, aching from the inside out. He couldn't help the way he clawed at himself, twisted and turned, heaving and crying and half begging for something, anything to help. He wanted his family, he wanted his friends, he wanted anyone at all. Tommy had curled in on himself, eyes squeezed shut, blacking out. When he opened them again, he was looking at his own darkened paws, thin fingers with claws and arms covered with fur. Everything smelled stronger. He could pick up traces of Niki, who'd been over a week before, and Tubbo, who'd been rummaging through their kitchen a while back. His ears flicked, the sound of birds outside loud and the house was quiet. He was a raccoon. His shifted form was a raccoon. He remembers scampering around the house all excited, climbing and running, tumbling along the floor by himself. He remembers biting at things just because he had the urge to, pulling things that weren't his into high spaces that only he would be able to find. He remembers being so excited about his form, and how fitting it was, and how he'd be able to roll around with Jack or chase Carl or brush under open, petting hands. But then he also remembers the excitement fading once he actually realized what he was, not just a raccoon, a pest, a vermin. A lot of people on this server, they tolerate him, rolling his eyes at his builds or sighing when he steals something that he wants. Even Wilbur would squint at him and call him a gremlin, or Techno a little pest. He's an annoyance, something to brush away, something to hiss at and ignore. This form, his shift, all it does is confirm that. If people on the server found out what he was, they'd turn their noses at him, they'd scoff, they would hate him. He knows it. So he doesn't let them know. Ranboo is the worst. Other than the fact that he shows up taller than Tommy, older, and immediately endears both Phil and Techno to him in his human form, his shifted form just has to be a frickin' cat. A long, short-haired, black and white cat with paws like mittens and stupidly kind eyes. He shifts and brushes up on Tubbo's legs and rubs his cheek on Wilbur's hand and kneads all over Quackity's coat. Dream will walk around with Ranboo following cheerily, and will laugh when he paws at George's little green head, making him jump backwards into a pond so Ranboo will stop. Everyone on the server loves him, from Sam, who Tommy has spotted shifting and cleaning Ranboo with his tongue, a sight to see, a huge panther nosing at a tiny house cat, to Jack and Ponk, both dogs, which definitely goes against some sort of cosmic law. And it really frickin' sucks, because even Tommy likes the guy. He gives Tommy a flower on his first day and follows him around willingly, and when Tommy plans to pull a prank on Dream for spitting water at him the other day, he offers his help. He makes Tubbo smile so much it looks like it hurts and never looks at Tommy weird for not shifting. Sometimes Tommy will wake up in his hill home, and Ranboo will be curled up at the edge of his bed, black and white back rising and falling slowly. Tommy, when he's sure no one is looking, will reach out and scratch down his white spots, smiling when he hears Ranboo purr. He's imprinted on you, Sam says when Tommy comes by the hotel with Ranboo running alongside him. Tommy sits by the front desk and absently dangles some spare string from Ranboo for Ranboo to knock at. What? Like a baby chick? Tommy asks, nose wrinkling. No, Sam laughs. No, like a shifter. He senses kin in you. Something similar draws you together, like Wilbur and Phil, or Sapnap and Dream. Okay. I get Wilbur and Phil, they're both birds, but Sapnap's shifted form is a bear, not a dragon, Tommy points out, and I haven't manifested yet. How would... It's not about your form. He leans across the counter to peek at Ranboo, who's rolling over and showing his belly. Tommy sighs, just leans over to give him a scratch. It's about your souls. You and Tubbo have it too. So do Niki and Puffy, Bat and Skeppy. It's just something that makes you two click. Huh, Tommy hums. When he pulls away from petting Ranboo, Ranboo rolls back over so he's standing and jumps up to make himself comfortable in Tommy's lap. I guess. Who are your imprints then? Sam tilts his head, smiling. Wouldn't you like to know? Tommy figures he can guess when not. A second later, Ponk bursts in through the door with Foolish, arguing about something completely not worth arguing about. They drag Sam into the debate, and Tommy curls his arms around Ranboo and leaves them, all beaming smiles and excited loud voices, thinking hard about that for the rest of the day. Sapnap is huge when he's shifted. He's a hulking mass of black and white, teeth bared and hackles raised, all four paws clawing at the ground, growling out a warning to stay back behind him, only emphasizing his size, is a hurt Carl, with a worried, fluttering Quackity hopping around him, squawking all panicked-like. Sap, Sap, Tommy tries, raising two hands placatingly. Let me help. I can get Carl to Ponk, and he'll be taken care of. Sapnap snarls, shifted his weight like he doesn't know what to do. The little Phil in Tommy's head goes, instincts. His instincts are overriding his logical thought. He won't remember that Ponk is a doctor, that Tommy means no harm. The only thing he's thinking is how Carl is hurt and that he needs to be protected. And to make matters worse, the longer this goes on, the more hurt Carl will be, and the more distressed Sapnap will be that Carl isn't feeling better. Tommy could shift now. He could. His form is small and unassuming and non-threatening, and Sapnap could be way too deep to even recall once he's clear-headed. If Tommy is quick, but no, Quackity is there, and no doubt Carl, still trying to move, would remember being bundled to a raccoon's chest. Tommy can't help like that. Then a memory comes to him. He's young, even younger than he is now, and he's watching through the window as Techno shifted, drags his hooves against the dirt, tossing his head at Phil. He's agitated. Even Tommy, still too small to understand anything of manifestations or other forms, can tell. Behind him is Wilbur, human and holding his arm to his side, red dripping down his fingers and onto the grass under him. They had been out hunting and ended up attacked by mobs. When Techno's back was turned, Wilbur had gotten hurt. The sight and smell of blood sent Technoblade into a frenzy, and now he wouldn't let anyone close. Phil needed to get to Wilbur, but Technoblade was so clouded that he was willing to charge at him in a misguided attempt to protect. Phil hadn't been aggressive or attempted to get through to Technoblade, understanding that his brain was a never-ending stream of protect. Instead, Phil got down low to the ground, showed his neck, opened his hands wide, displayed no force. Eventually, Technoblade let him creep forward and tend to Wilbur under a watchful eye, and soon Wilbur's arm was wrapped in that gleam exited Techno's eyes, returning him to an objective thought. So that's what Tommy follows now. He kneels, baring his neck, showing vulnerability, showing weakness. Sapnap's growl falters, and he takes a cautious sniff. "Hey, bud," Tommy goes, speaking soft like he's heard Phil speak, speaking gentle like he'd want someone to speak to him. "Hey, I just want to help, yeah? Carl is hurt. I can help stop it. I know you want him to not be in pain, right?" Sapnap's claws release the dirt and Quackity's anxious fluttering stops. "But you just gotta let me come closer. I can't help what I can't see." Sapnap makes a huffing sound. Tommy takes that as a yes and starts shuffling forward on his knees, keeping his movements open and obvious, nothing quick or impulsive. Carl is shifted, a small brown hair, long ears twitching rapidly, panicked. He's curled around his own leg, making little sniffle mule sounds. Quackity, all blue-brown feathers, snaps at Tommy when he reaches down to touch, but Sapnap rumbles comfortably and Quackity is quelled. "Hey, Carl," Tommy says. "Hey, that looks pretty bad, huh? You twisted your ankle on that roots, yeah?" He gently reaches down and takes the rabbit's foot in his hand, stretching it to see. "I remember when I used to run over those roots. I fricked up my knees pretty bad. I'll admit it to you, 'cause you're cool, but I was crying a lot. It hurt. But Phil took me home, got me some Band-Aids, made it all better." Over his shoulder, Sapnap leans closer, nudging at Tommy's hair affectionately, worriedly. Tommy grins. Good old Mama Bear Sapnap. Really puts the sap in Sapnap. "I'm all right now, but we need to get Carl to Punk," Tommy explains, setting his leg carefully so Carl can move without much pain. "Are you all right with me carrying him? It's just until we get to Punk." Sapnap rumbles questioningly, paws at the ground, leans down and sniffs at Carl, who pulls up as much as he can to bump his little head against Sapnap's black nose. Quackity flutters up and folds himself up between Sapnap's ears. Then they're all looking at Tommy expectantly. Tommy takes that as a yes. He's careful to go slow as he walks the prime path with Carl in his held arms. Sapnap and Quackity follow, lumbering along. They make it there and Punk is sitting at their desk, writing. When they see Tommy, they jump up, eyes going wide. "Carl's hurt," is all Tommy has to say before Punk has him. Later, he's waiting outside, sitting in the grass picking weeds until Punk is finished. When footsteps sound behind him, he turns and catches sight of Sapnap's shoes. "Thanks for all that, Tommy," Sapnap says gruffly. I was a bit lost there. Instincts and all that. I'm sure you would know." Actually, Tommy doesn't. He hardly shifts, so he never knows what raccoon brain and what's Tommy brain. They're both one and the same, always have been. When he wants something, he considers taking it. When he wants to sleep, he bundles up. When he feels like running and swimming and climbing, he does it. All on human legs and feet. He doesn't know anything else. "Yeah," he says, though. "Yeah, I know. No problem, Sapnap." Sapnap presses a hand down on Tommy's hair, ruffling it roughly. "Come on inside. Quackity is basically molting feathers to thank you." Tommy grins and lets himself be pulled up to his feet and ushered inside. When they were small and Tommy couldn't sleep, Wilbur would tell him bedtime stories, made-up shifters, little like eagles that could fly all the way to space, or starfish that grew as big as the tallest mountain. They were all good, but Tommy's favorite shifter story was of Wilbur and his manifestation. "Tell me my favorite story," he'd ask, pulling a blanket over his head and peeking up at his brother's fond face. "You've heard it a million times before," Wilbur would go. "You could probably tell me." Tommy'd shake his head furiously and poke him until he'd give in, pulling himself up on the bed beside Tommy, letting Tommy drop his head on Wilbur's chest. "Okay, you bossy little gremlin," he'd say once Tommy was settled, warm and cozy. So it was a normal Thursday afternoon. Wilbur always went into great detail to describe the monotony of the day. The way it rained before he woke up, how Wilbur flipped pancakes, and how Techno was planning his first hunting trip and kept shooing Wilbur away when he started getting in the way. Wilbur ate his pancakes with white chocolate drizzled on top, the way he always did, and the second he finished his stack, he started feeling ill. He groaned, dropping his forehead against the table after pushing away his plate, and Phil came over to feel his forehead. "I feel sick," he went, and Phil instantly knew what it meant. Wilbur remembers Phil guiding him from his seat and through the doorway to the living room. He remembers being laid down and given water, remembers Techno poking his head out of his room and sniffing the air. Wilbur swears the first thing he said when he saw Wilbur lying there on the couch was, "Will smells weird. What's wrong with him?" That part always made Tommy laugh. Wilbur said that they helped make a nest around him, even though he hadn't manifested as any type of avian yet, it brought Phil comfort to do something familiar. And then this is the part that Wilbur always is blurry on. Sometimes he says that he remembers Phil wrapping him up and cooing at him softly. Other times he says it was Technoblade, pressing close to his side, sharing his comforting heat. But whatever it was, it made the pain ebb, made the manifestation just uncomfortable rather than painful. Tommy likes to think it was both Phil and Techno. He believes that it would be. It just sounds right. Phil soothing Wilbur, and Techno protecting him while he's vulnerable. Tommy can picture it if he tries hard enough. At this point, Wilbur would trail a hand through Tommy's hair as he's on the cusp of sleep. When I finally shifted with my deep brown wings and tail feathers and black claws, they both celebrated. When I chirped my first notes, I remember Technoblade shedding a tear. Of course, here is where Techno, standing by the doorway, would huff but smile, neither confirming nor denying. "Songbird," Phil said. Wilbur continued, voice hushed and reverent. "My little songbird." He was proud, I could tell. "Soon that will be you, Toms. You'll be our little songbird, or cat, or wolf." "I have bets on a wolf," Techno would interrupt, stepping into the room and coming over to sit on Tommy's other side. Tommy would immediately move so he was in between the two of them, safe and held. "Or something of a ruckus puppy." Wilbur laughed, all melodious. "No, look at him. He's a cat, cuddly and independent." "Both," Tommy would say sleepily. "Nonsensical, really." It made them both laugh anyway. Wilbur would lean down, press a kiss to his hair, and then Techno would do that comforting safety content rumble, and Tommy would drop off to sleep. Now he's neither, and nothing at the same time. He wonders if Phil is still proud, wonders if he could ever truly be anybody's anything. "Are you going to the pile?" Ranboo blurts out in the middle of Tommy's axe swing. He's shocked at the question and nearly trips himself, overcompensating, hitting the roots instead of the trunk. When he steadies himself, he glares at Ranboo, who at least has the decency to look apologetic, furthered by the way Tubbo hits his shoulder. Never mind," Ranboo tries, but Tommy isn't interested now. "The pile," he says, frowning. "You mean, like, the pile of people who shift?" Ranboo nods slowly. Tubbo's shoulders dip a bit. "Ranboo, I don't shift," he sighs. "Why would I go?" "You could, though." Tubbo hops down from his seat on the stump. He steps closer. "You could. You're just as much a part of this server, shifted or not. You know that." Tommy is quiet. Tubbo's brows furrow. "You do know that, right?" Tommy turns away, picks up his axe again. "I'll sit this one out. You guys go cuddle or whatever. I've got wood to collect." "Tommy, go on," he says, not looking back. "You'll be late. I'll see you guys tomorrow, yeah?" Tubbo blows a breath, frustrated, but Ranboo shuffles forward, lays his chin on Tommy's shoulder. He's all cat-like, needy, clingy. Tubbo follows suit, pressing close to Tommy's other side. A little sandwich hug. He imagines this is what the pile feels like, just warmth and safety on all sides. Tommy sighs, then drops his axe, turning so he can wrap his best friends up. "I'm all right, really. Go. By the time you come back, I'll have enough wood so we can start building." "You'll join us soon," Tubbo mumbles into Tommy's shirt, not easily deterred. "When you manifest." "Yeah," Tommy says. Lies. "Yeah, soon. Of course." He chops down more trees until his arms ache and his hands are red, until he has a message on his communicator from Phil saying that there is food in the fridge if he wants it and that they won't be home until tomorrow probably. There's another from Wilbur, trying to convince him to stop by, but Tommy ignores it. He bundles his wood, heaves it through the forest. He avoids the prime path, takes the long way to his hill home. He puts the wood in a chest and lays there on the floor for a moment, breathing. It's empty, his home, and the ghost of Tubbo and Ranboo at his sides makes him ache. He wants. Without conscious thought, he's shifting and rolling over and running out of his home. It's a late evening, just dark enough for him to not be spotted as he's scurrying up the side of the community house and finds a crack so he can peer inside. The tank's been opened, so Dream can rest in it, head on his bank, with George, small and spotted blue, sitting between his frills. Sapnap is against a wall, laying on his back with Carl and Quackity curled together in his stomach. They rise and fall with every one of Sapnap's breaths. Out of sight is Puffy, hooves folded neatly, with Niki half buried in her colorful wool. Sam is there, all stretched out, tail curling and uncurling lazily, with Ponk laying over him. Tommy assumes the dark shape shifting in the tank is foolish, bubbling happily. He catches sight of an Ant Frost tail on Eric's mane, and Punz's golden fur, or Skeppy's spotted black and Bad's feathery wings. Everyone is here. Tommy sees Ranboo and Tubbo laying all over each other, right next to Techno. There's a spot there at his back, next to Ranboo, empty and open, and Tommy nearly teeters, falling into it. He imagines Wilbur perched up on Techno's shoulder blade, would flutter rapidly and hop over, chirping and pecking at Tommy's fur. He imagines Tubbo, half asleep and comfortable, would roll over and bury his snout in Tommy's back. He imagines Ranboo, lazily in cat form, would twine their tails together and purr loud enough to rumble through Tommy. He wants it more than anything. He turns away and climbs back down, heading home. He's alone, but he doesn't want to be, so he heads to Snow Home. He doesn't shift, brain on a long logging stream of den, pack, safety home that makes him ache. He gets in and can't resist the urge to nest, pulling various blankets and soft bits of clothing to his own bed and situating them so he can hide under. It almost perfectly mimics the feeling of pack all around, with Techno's cape and Wilbur's coat and Phil's robes. Almost. It feels hollow without the natural heat and heartbeats that would be there, but it's better than nothing. He figures he's all right to indulge for a moment, that it will take them a moment to get back. Unfortunately, he underestimates his own exhaustion, because the first thing he hears as he's tripping into wakefulness is a hushed conversation. Has to be Tommy. He must have. Oh, Prime, all alone? Oh, mate, why would he? I don't know. He's always waking up. Tommy. Toms? Tommy opens his eyes, ears twitching and paws rubbing at his face. The first thing he sees is Wilbur staring down at him, concerned, and then Phil next to him, eyes saddened. Oh no. Oh no. Frick. He's shifted. There. And he isn't. Tommy? Phil starts, but Tommy isn't listening, too busy scurrying backward frantically. Wilbur reaches out, going, Wait! Tommy, wait! But he's too panicked to even process. He's leaping out of the house. He's leaping out of the window before he can be grabbed. Thankfully, he catches himself on a branch and follows it down to a tree trunk, then into another, and then another. Sheer instinct has him ducking low and into the underbrush once he's far enough away from the snow home, hiding away from bird eyes as he runs. He's going as fast as he can, nearly tripping on stray roots and logs and mob traps, and he gets far enough that he doesn't recognize the shape of the trees around him, so he keeps running. It's only when his side aches and he's making little whistle wheezes with every breath that he slows down and pulls himself up into a tree hollow. His paws are freezing from the snow, his fur is wet and he's shaking and shivering from both cold and exhaustion. He presses himself against the wood and hunches, trying to slow his breathing so he doesn't have panic attack. He wants Wilbur, or Techno, or Phil. He wants to be loved and warm and safe. He wants to be held and cared for. He wants his form to not matter. Tommy whines and curls up as tight as he can, trying not to cry. He wakes up to the sound of a long howl. It's night now, and the snow has stopped. When Tommy pokes his head out of the hollow, he sees fresh powder on the ground, enough to have covered his tracks, buying him extra time. The air is still but brisk, and Tommy can feel his coat puffing as he creeps further into the cold. The howl is a way off, somewhere past the river divide, and it echoes off the snow banks and nearby cliffs hauntingly. But even with all the distortion, Tommy knows it's Jack. He can't tell if they're still looking for him, if they told Jack so he can help track. but he doesn't want to hope. He doesn't want to hope that they'd still want him, that they wouldn't be upset or disappointed, because it would hurt too badly to be wrong. He starts foraging, grateful for those hunting trips that Technoblade made him go on last winter and fishing that they did in the spring. He remembers Techno carefully guiding his hands to hold an axe, a fishing rod, a spring trap, patient and unyielding, not letting Tommy distract him from their goal. He started out the day complaining about how early he had to wake up and the fact that he'd never need to know any of what Technoblade was teaching, but he always ended up excited with what he learned and feeling satisfied sense of exhaustion. Why do I need to know any of this stuff? He remembers whining as he tried to yank a boot out of the thick mud. In case you have to do it someday, Technoblade replied calmly. Tommy stopped, rolled his eyes. I'll just get you to do it, or Phil. Technoblade was quiet for a second, then hummed. We might not always be around to help you. These are things you should learn to do for yourself. Tommy frowned, put off by Techno's tone. You planning on leaving me? He asked quietly. Techno's face did something complicated, went all twisted up, like he was in pain, like he was incredulous. Like it was unheard of. He stepped closer on the bank and held out a hand to help Tommy out of the mud. Once Tommy was on solid ground, he leaned down and pressed their foreheads together. Never, Theseus, he whispered. A vow. Not if I can help it. Now Tommy is the one leaving. He's the one breaking promises. But to be fair, they were made back before Tommy ever shifted. Things are different now. They just can't be the way they were. He gathers enough to feed himself. Not generous meals, no, but enough to survive until he plans his next move. He didn't want to think about it, but he can't stay on this tree. It wouldn't work past a week. There are hardly enough nuts and seeds around to feed himself in human form for one single snack, let alone shifted form for longer than 2 days. Eventually he'll have to move, somewhere far, with green grass and trees not covered in snow and no SMP members to spot him. Maybe he'll find a new server, start over, build anew. He'll miss everyone, Ranboo trailing behind him constantly and Foolish helping him build, Punk's gentle hands wrapping up an injury, and Puffy's warm woolly hugs, Sam grinning so big when he sees Tommy, and Fundy's fond eye rolls, teasing Carl about Bugs Bunny and Quackity about Daffy Duck, George when he lets Tommy follow him around all day, and Bad when he doesn't, Niki when she wraps an extra treat up for him, and Sapnap when he tugs Tommy around by the scruff of his tee. Dream inviting him to the server and poking fun at his builds and annoying him when he feels like shirt until he doesn't anymore. Tubbo and Phil and Techno and Wilbur. Gosh, Wilbur. He'll miss his family so much that it'll make him ill. Hell, it already does. Just the thought of going any further than he already has makes his stomach turn inside into knots. He'll miss everybody so badly. But it's what's best. He'll give himself a day, and then pick a random direction and just go until he can't anymore. Predator. Tommy's brain goes, and within seconds he's fully awake. He's tucked away in his hidey hole, so he isn't spotted, but he can hear someone shuffling about below him. There's no way for him to look and see who it is or what they are without being seen, and he can't smell them over the crisp, clean snow. Judging by the sound of their footfall, he can tell they're much bigger than him, probably stronger, which wouldn't take much. Danger, danger, flee, his brain is going, and he agrees. His best bet, since he hasn't been noticed yet, is to leap and sprint off. He was planning to go anyway. This is just speeding it all along. If he's quick enough, he'll be 3 trees away before they know he's there. He's about to jump when he hears a familiar snorting, frustrated and determined, and that ringing alarm in his brain melts into a symphony of pack, safe, Technoblade. Longing slams into him, so much and so quickly that he can't stop himself from chittering out, calling. The movement from below stops and Tommy knows he's been caught out. He peeks out of the hollow and sees Techno's brown eyes watching him carefully. The air is tight, thick with tension. Tommy hesitates, then creeps down the tree bark, settling on the snow in front of his brother. He's in a human's arm length away, but Techno doesn't shift, clearly understanding that Tommy would run the second he's reached for. Instead, Techno shuffles the way he does when he wants to reassure one of them. The sound startles Tommy, then sinks into his bones and makes his paws unclench in the cold snow. Techno starts to move, and it's the only reason Tommy doesn't turn tail and sprint away. The shuffling, the crunch of his hooves on the snow, the slow movements. It promises no threat. Techno bows his head, lowering his tusks to the forest floor, and doesn't look up, waiting. Tommy's nose twitches. He hesitates. He should run. He should go. But Techno came looking for him. Techno searched for him despite knowing Tommy's shifted form. Techno was reassuring him. Techno still feels like home. He steps forward slowly and reaches out to place a shaky paw to the crown of Techno's head. He's soft, so soft and warm, and Tommy shudders, pressing closer, nosing in. Techno moves, still shuffling, turning his head so Tommy is tucked between his cheek and his shoulder, like a hug. His heartbeat is thudding loudly, and it's like Tommy can feel it in his own chest. It's warm and safe and feels like never, Theseus, not if I can help it. There are wing beats in the air not a second later, Phil swooping down and Wilbur following close behind. They shift the second they hit the ground, Phil smoothly as he's done it a million times before, and Wilbur in a frazzle of panicked limbs. They both come close, and Tommy tenses, nearly pulling away, but then Techno makes a warning sound that has Phil and Wilbur pause. "Tommy," Wilbur says, his voice cracking and breaking, like he spent hours yelling, straining his voice. You're all right. You're okay." And he sounds so relieved and worried, and it's enough for Tommy to shift back and jump into his brother's arms, not rocking them backwards a bit. "I'm sorry," is the first words he sobs, the first words he's spoken in 3 days. I'm sorry. Wilbur presses a trembling hand to the back of Tommy's neck. He cradles him close. There's a crunching in the snow, suddenly Phil is there, kneeling down next to them, hooking his chin over Tommy's freezing shoulder, pressing his forehead to Tommy's wet temple. "Don't apologize," Wilbur pleads, voice hushed and still pulling Tommy in closer as close as he can. "Please don't. Just come home, Tommy. Please just come home." Tommy inhales, their arms tightening around him. Wilbur chirps unhappily and Techno brushes his other side. Tommy exhales. "Okay," he says. "Okay, yes. Home." They don't let him walk home. Not as if his legs would support him anyway. He ran out of the house to his shifted form, and the last time he wasn't shifted, it was without shoes on his thin tee. And in his thin tee, he's shaking, and the way he sat in the snow holding onto Wilbur didn't help. Phil has him lay on Techno's back, the way that he used to when he was younger and didn't want to walk. He'd lay on Techno, back to back, and gaze up at the sky as Wilbur pointed out constellations or clouds on tree leaves. It's almost exactly the same, except now Technoblade keeps giving off those comforting, safety, calming rumbles, as if Tommy is just too tense and stressed for him to be comfortable. Wilbur flies ahead, but occasionally does loops back to check on them, or peck at Tommy's cold fingers or brush by his hair. Phil stays steadily at his side, ducking low branches, and leading them home, keeping an eye on Tommy. They get inside, and Techno deposits him on the couch, then unshifts, immediately pulling down at the throws and furs to wrap Tommy up. Tommy doesn't protest, for one, because he's actually freaking cold, and two, because Techno's got that look in his eye that means his brain is only focused on protecting his packmate. Phil comes down the hall and with more blankets and gives them to Techno so he can place them around Tommy. Wilbur sweeps into the room and brushes a warm mug of tea into Tommy's shaky hands. "Okay, we should talk," Phil says once Tommy is sufficiently warmer and everyone is settled close. His shoulders curl in. "Okay," he says, voice small. All right, what do you want to talk about?" "What do we—" Wilbur starts incredulously before stopping himself. "Everything, Toms, everything. You—" Phil raises a hand to stop him. "Tommy, your manifestation. Did it happen during the pile? While we were all gone?" No, Tommy sighs. "I manifested before Fundy did." Phil jerks backwards, eyes wide. "What?" Tommy ducks a little, curling his hands into heavy furs. Yeah, you and Will were gone. Techno was out, and I was here, alone. And I felt sick, but I didn't really think it was anything. But I came over to the couch and fell asleep, and when I woke up, I was still alone. And now his breath hitches, and suddenly it's harder to breathe. "It hurt, Dad. It hurt so much. I didn't think, and there wasn't anyone around to. Phil moves forward and practically tackles Tommy into a hug, letting him sob into his shoulder. Tommy does, and balls his fist into the back of Phil's cloak, like a plea to not leave. And then, I was a raccoon, and it was freaking bad. Not like a wolf or a dog or a dove or anything, and it was horrible, and I didn't want anyone to hate me, so I just... Phil pulls away and grips Tommy closer, incredulously and confused. What? Why would anyone hate you for that? Tommy sniffles and shrugs. I'm a pest, innit? Everyone says so. Will you? Tommy's gaze flickers over to him, but he's stopped by just how horrified Wilbur looks. Tommy! Oh no, Toms! And now Wilbur is coming close, pulling him in, and Tommy's face is nestled against the hollow of Wilbur's throat, close and wanted. No, that isn't what I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you thought I'd ever... No, I love you. I love you, human. I love you shifted. I love you if you couldn't shift at all. I'd love you if you killed me, Tommy. Oh gosh. I love you so much that it almost does. You're my Tommy, my little brother, shifted or not, wolf or raccoon, or anything. You're precious to me, to all of us. How stupid, Technoblade says before Tommy can start crying again. Wilbur and Phil both jerk, and Tommy pulls away to look at him, eyes wide. His stare is intense, his jaw tight. How could you ever think we wouldn't love you? Do you know how long we looked for you? How long we were prepared to look for you? We would have looked forever. We wouldn't have stopped until you were home. Tommy shudders. Techno leans forward, cupping Tommy's wet cheek, not letting him look away, speaking directly to him, soul to soul. Tommy, you are ours. Family, flock, Sonder, nothing. No force on this planet will ever change that. Oh, Tommy says. He feels small and stupid, actually, and no. His insecurities feel very small and stupid, especially in the face of their unending love. Really? Really, Techno nods. Really, really? Really, really, Wilbur says, leaning in and burrowing his face in Tommy's hair again. Tommy peeks at Phil, behind Wilbur. He's got tears in his eyes, but he doesn't seem upset. If anything, he just seems proud. Of course, Tommy, Phil says, smiling. My Tommy. Tommy shudders again, claimed. Then hugs Wilbur as tight as he can, reaching out with grabby hands to pull Techno and Phil close. Yours, he breathes. Promises. Afterwards, everything is different, and yet somehow still the same. The next day, Tubbo is over at first light, and he doesn't let Tommy get up off the snow home living room floor, human or shifted. Tubbo, Tommy starts whining, trying to push him away, but Tubbo just holds him tighter. Shut the frick up. I'm scenting my best friend, he huffs. You aren't even shifted, and also, you're a goat. They don't scent. Tubbo leans down and, did you just frickin' bite me? No, Tubbo lies, nudging his head under Tommy's red, bite-marked arm. Tubbo gives in. Tommy gives in, sighing and resting his hand on Tubbo's brown locks. When Ranboo comes over, you're gonna have to let me up, he points out, and Tubbo snorts. Funny that you think Ranboo won't immediately lay on top of you, too. Unlike goats, cats actually do scent. Tommy groans, and then groans some more when Tubbo is proven right. Ranboo comes in, immediately shifts, and curls up on the nook of Tommy's arm. Tubbo follows suit, shifting as well, and then bleats at Tommy annoyingly until he gives in to shifting and his brushy tail and grabby paws and fuzzy ears. Ranboo's eyes go wide and he meows, trying to lean forward to rub his forehead against Tommy's, and Tubbo shuffles closer, folding at his knees, butting Tommy happily. Ranboo settles and starts purring loud enough to rattle Tommy's teeth, and Tommy, not to be outdone, lays his head on Ranboo's chest, fluff, and purrs back. Tubbo kicks at them to stop and then rumbles in his best imitation of a purr. It's all warmth and heartbeats and close, safe contact and everything that Tommy wanted and didn't think he could have. It was right here the whole time. Come swimming with me, Tommy, Dream asks a week later, and Tommy can't say no. There's no reason to. Dream takes him down to the beach, brings George and Sapnap and towels and floaties and all sorts of things that Tommy doesn't think belong in the water. Sapnap doesn't shift, saying something about getting a tan, and George doesn't either, saying he prefers spring water, but Dream tugs him down on the beach and they set up towels. They go in to where the ocean meets the sand, and Dream starts kicking water at him, dancing around in the lapping waves. Like a fool, Tommy blinks at him, shocked. He was sure that Dream would urge him to shift, but all he's doing is running back and forth in the surf on human legs, being the world's most annoying person. Tommy's shock melts and he grins toothfully when he chances after Dream, telling him and yelling and laughing. He tackles the man, rolling them deeper into the froth. Tommy pins him, and to get away, Dream shifts, spinning out into the waves, turning blue and green and nearly smacking Tommy with his tail as he goes. Tommy hesitates, and from the sand, Sapnap calls out, "Frickin' show off! Go on, Tommy, get him! Don't let that dick frick with you!" Tommy frowns, hands twitching, but then Dream's head resurfaces and he spits water at Tommy, dousing him. Dream cocks his head, moving back and forth, ready to play, wanting to swim. There's no reason why Tommy shouldn't, not anymore. So Tommy growls and jumps at him, shifting in midair. Dream does that hack laugh, squealing yell and spins with a raccoon when a raccoon lands on his head. They tilt and suddenly Tommy's in the water, holding onto Dream's scales. They fight, and Tommy scrabbles as hard as he can because Dream's scales can take it. Dream twists and turns, trying to buck him off, but taking care to keep Tommy inward so he doesn't get pulled away from the currents. It's fun, tossing in the waves with him, and when Tommy gets tired, he curls his little hands around Dream's spines and lets Dream lazily pull them both through the sea. Eventually, they roll into the shore and Tommy shakes the water away, then crawls over to the warmth of the sand. Dream follows, huffing and making a big show of yawning, all teeth and tongue. "Tommy doesn't want a horde nap with you, Dream," George says without looking up from where he's been sorting his collection of half-broken seashells and clearish rocks. "Stop being needy. Tommy is going to steal those." He goes over and tucks himself between Dream's shoulder blades, tapping at his scales. "Shiny." His ears flicks distractedly. "Horde nap?" Dream warbles and it sounds whiny. He curls, fronds flexing to hide Tommy from view, like George is going to take him away. It's what Dream does when he decides someone is in his clan. He wants to nap with them. It's like a dog pile, but dragons get all touchy about that stuff, so maybe don't say that, Sapnap explains. Dream makes a grumbly noise and Sapnap rolls his eyes. "Shut up, you big diva. Ugh, dragons. But yeah, it's usually until his instincts are calmer. Nothing too crazy." Tommy pauses, then purrs, burrowing in, digging his claws in. Safe, pack, family, safe. His brain is going. He's not close enough. He needs... Tommy stands. He climbs down Dream's arm and tucks himself in the small space between Dream's shoulder, his jaw, and the sand. Here, Tommy can hear the pulse of thumping through him. He can feel his breath whistling by. Dream gives a content, happy rumble and turns his head, effectively tucking him in. Tommy's surrounded and safe and, dare he say it, loved. He falls asleep there in his shifted form, all on the warm sand, curled up with Dream, keeping watch. Wilbur's taken to following him around Snowhome with the nervous energy, mother henning like it's his job. He clearly still feels guilty about not being around for Tommy's manifesting, even though Tommy keeps saying that it's no one's fault. It's just how it ended up happening. Wilbur doesn't listen and keeps giving Tommy cups of water or blankets or coming back from trips out with newly brought out shining things that Tommy can tuck away in his room. He stopped calling Tommy a little pest or gremlin or anything like that, and instead has taken to calling Tommy sunshine and love and dear. That one was way too much, and Tommy had to smack Wilbur in the nose. "I'm not a deer, I'm a raccoon, you frick face. What, do you not know your animals now?" Needless to say, after hitting him back, Wilbur stopped calling him that, where Tommy could hear him. But now he's still his clingy, annoying self. "Let me read you a bedtime story, Tommy," Wilbur asks, trailing behind him as Tommy gets ready to go to sleep. "I'm not 8, Will," Tommy huffs, swiping at Phil's stray quilts that he just leaves lying around. "I don't need a story to go to sleep anymore." I know, Toms, but please." Wilbur gets in front of Tommy, right in the doorway to his bedroom, blocking him from going forward. Tommy glares. "Please?" Tommy sighs, turns his eyes up to the ceiling. "Oh, my prime. Fine." Wilbur grins and Tommy ducks under his arm. "Maybe if it gets you to stop acting like the world is ending every time I look anything less than elated, then okay." Okay, get in bed," Wilbur says, ignoring his grumbling. Tommy does as he's told and pulls Phil's quilt around himself snugly. All right, you better tell my favorite. Wilbur's face flip-flops complicatedly, before he settles. Actually, no, I won't. I'm telling a different story. Tommy groans. What the frick, man? Wilbur hushes him. Listen, listen. He scoots over so they can be side by side, and Tommy leans so that he's got his cheek to Wilbur's sweatered shoulder. There was a kid, and he was all brash and loud, but only to hide the fact that he was so secretly the sweetest and cared too much about people. He also cared too much about what people thought and assumed the worst. Tommy frowns. He didn't realize that everyone he's ever met adores him and loves having them in his life. He didn't realize that he touches people in so many different ways, and that not having him around would change so much. Well, Tommy starts, seeing where this is going, but Wilbur keeps talking. He ran and scared the freaking stuff out of everyone in his family, Wilbur says, leaning and pressing his nose to Tommy's hair. He scared everyone so badly. They thought they lost him. I thought I lost my little brother. Tommy inhales, emotion tight in his throat. He presses closer to Wilbur, burying his face in his sweater. Wilbur holds him tight, pulling him close. He is loved. He is so insanely loved and wanted and precious, Wilbur whispers. And we are so happy that he's in our lives. We are so proud of him, of you. The floorboards creak and Tommy peeks out to see Techno in the doorway, watching them fondly. Tommy sticks out an arm, makes grabby hands with his other brother. Techno huffs amusedly and comes forward, sitting on Tommy's other side. He places a heavy hand on Tommy's head, brushing through his hair. My Theseus, he rumbles, affectionate and pride making Tommy swell. Possessive fool, Wilbur snips, dragging Tommy closer. You can share. Oh, go build a nest, Bertie, Techno huffs, and Tommy grins. Wilbur sticks his tongue out. But yeah, Wilbur is right. You're loved. Beyond belief. More than you think and you know. So don't ever forget it. Tommy doesn't respond other than to tuck himself further into their arms and believe them. I would have found you, Dream says. They're laying in the grass, watching as Quackity and George splash around in their little flowered lake near Skeppy's. Nearby, Aunt Frost is lounging, cat-napping in the sun, and Sapnap is trying to catch a fish with his clumsy paws. Every time he falls, George croaks at him. And even in Frog, it sounds taunting. What? Tommy asks, turning his head to Dream. I would have found you, he repeats, eyes on the blue sky. This is my server, Tommy. The second Phil told me you were missing, I wanted to go into the code and find you. Tommy frowns. This is a bit weird, Big D. Just a little stalkerish of you. Dream goes red, pushes his mask up a little. I don't mean to be. Not in a weird way, but, well, I'm a dragon. We don't take kindly to our things and our people going missing. If you truly wanted to leave, I'd let you, but I don't know. You don't think you were loved? You should know that I'd come looking for you if you left. That a lot of people here would. Tommy bites down an embarrassed grin. He kicks Dream. Frick you, then. Thanks. Yeah, 'cause, Sapnap almost went ballistic when he found out, Dream snickers. Tommy looks over to where Sapnap is getting slapped in the furry face by a wiggling salmon. Yeah? Yeah, he's a secret softy. Cares about you a lot. We all do. Mama Bear Sapnap, Tommy thinks, odd. Tommy looks up at the blue sky. There's a cloud going by that looks like a giraffe, another that looks like an ice cream cone. Clouds don't just form like that. Dream must be messing around with the code. I care about you guys too, he says. And I don't want to go. I just thought, it was stupid. Yeah, it was, Dream agrees, then kicks Tommy back. I'm glad you know better now, because next time I'm just gonna let Sapnap run after you. I'd tear up your server, Tommy snorts. Dream pushes his mask up the rest of the way and catches Tommy's eyes and pauses, then hums. You'd be worth it. Jack, Tommy sighs, running to keep up. I told you, I gotta get your crops. Yeah, I heard you, Jack says, and keeps pulling Tommy along, clearly not hearing him. Just leave him for a moment, all right? Frickin', Tommy grumbles and nearly trips over his own feet because Jack doesn't have as much leg to manage as he does. Where in the world are we even going? What the frick do you want? L'Manberg, Jack says shortly, and then doesn't bother elaborating. Tommy sighs, but allows himself to be dragged until they're at the outer walls. Jack stops, and Tommy pulls his arm away, rubbing his wrist. Okay, we're here. This better be good, Tommy says gruffly, moving to push by Jack. Jack stops him, though, sliding in front of him. Tommy blinks, and then Jack is hugging him, dragging him close and squeezing him tight. Tommy stands there for a moment before awkwardly hugging back. He doesn't really know what's going on until Jack says, I looked for you the second that they told me. And when I couldn't find you, he pauses, taking a breath, hugging tighter. I'm glad that you didn't leave, that's all. Tommy eases, then hugs back in earnest. Me too, he admits. Jack pulls back and then grins. Tommy pretends not to see him, blinking away tears. All right, come on. Jack keeps going, into L'Manberg and past the trees and down the little incline to Wilbur's van. It's weirdly quiet and suspiciously empty. Usually there's always someone in L'Manberg, maybe Fundy rolling around in the leaves, or Quackney leaning on the hot dog counter making conversation with Wilbur, or Eric helping with the plants when Tommy couldn't. But now there isn't anyone except for Jack and Tommy. What are we doing here? Tommy asks, slightly quelled by Jack's rare softness. Where is everyone? Jack doesn't answer, hopping up the stairs and putting a hand on the door. He looks back at Tommy, eyes excited. You ready? Yeah, what are you? Jack pulls the door open and pushes Tommy inside of the dark van. Suddenly, the lights are flipped on and there's a yelling, excited cheering from everyone pressed into the small space. Tommy's eyes go wide, looking from one person to the next. Niki, Puffy, and Wilbur. Tubbo, Ranboo, and Eric. Phil is there in the corner, making sure that the table doesn't trip over, and Techno is in his side, surveying the room with a content expression. What is this? Tommy croaks, blinking rapidly. Niki sweeps forward, gently cups his cheek, swipes a thumb over his cheekbone. It's a party for you. Your manifestation party. You'll have to forgive it for being a little late, Tubbo says playfully. Someone decided not to tell us about their manifesting. Ranboo smacks Tubbo's arm, and Tubbo protests, but Tommy is too busy being halfway in shock, looking at the red and white streamers hanging from the van's ceiling and the table with a cake that has a raccoon crudely iced on the front. I did the icing, Jack says proudly when he sees Tommy looking, and Fundy rolls his eyes. Don't worry, Tommy, he says, leaning over to a stage whisper. Niki handled all the actual baking, so it at least is still going to taste good. Hey! Tommy is still speechless, looking at the bowl of carrots and berries and nuts set out. Tommy's favorites. All this for me? He asks softly, and Phil steps forward, holding Tommy's face in his hands. They lock eyes, and the sheer amount of love and pride there is almost overwhelming to look at. Of course, Toms, Phil says softly, like it's a given. He leans in and Tommy's eyes flutter shut, letting Phil press a kiss to his forehead. You deserve it. There's no reason why you wouldn't. The party is amazing. Wilbur cuts the cake and saves the raccoon face for Tommy. They all pile out onto the lawn with their plates and lay in the grass. The sun is just going down, and Eric pulls out a jukebox and plays a disc, and Tommy pulls Ranboo and Tubbo up to dance. They give Tommy gifts, various shining things and small trinkets that Tommy wants to tuck away in his collection. They keep pulling Tommy into hugs, and eventually after the 7th hug in a row, he realizes, oh, they were all scared. They thought he genuinely left the server. After that, he stops complaining about the hugs. At one point, Fundy and Jack shift and begin chasing one another through the trees. Tubbo joins just to cause problems, while Ranboo purposely stays back, curling in Puffy's lap, tail flickering judgmentally. All right, Theseus, Technoblade calls when Tommy gets caught up just watching them. He turns and has an intense feeling of deja vu, but this time, instead of stumbling out a lie, Tommy beams. Yeah, I'm all right. And then he shifts and runs off to play. And that was the story. And I Won't Run Away by Drhair76 on Archive of Your Own and Twitter. Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed. This story was so amazing, and we will be back with the next story in this collection soon. Once again, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed and have a great rest of your day. See you all next time, and goodbye.